Ever stop to think about the choices you're making right now? You know, the thoughts you keep coming back to, the little daydreams you get lost in? What if they're doing more than just passing the time? The source material we're diving into today has this wild and honestly pretty startling idea that our consciousness is literally building the world we're going to live in next. So let's fire up this so-called printer and see what blueprints we're really working with.
I mean, you gotta love the attitude, right? This is a vibe we can all recognize, putting things off for future me to deal with. It's the classic, I'll worry about it tomorrow mindset. But what happens when the debt we're racking up isn't about money? What if it's something way, way deeper? So, our source calls this karmic debt. And probably the easiest way to wrap your head around it is to compare it to something we all get, maybe a little too well, good old financial debt. Okay, let's break this down. On one side, you've got financial debt. Simple. You borrow money, and if you don't pay it back, you get hit with fees, penalties, your credit score tanks. We get it. But look at the other side, karmic debt. This is about using, let's call it cosmic energy, on things that aren't real, like violent fantasies or just endlessly escaping reality. And the consequence? It's not a bad credit score. It's you, personally, having to painfully undo and redeem every ounce of that misspent energy.
So why on earth would we do it? Well, according to our source, it's the exact same trap as getting a credit card with 0% interest for the first year, right? There are no immediate consequences. You don't see or feel any penalties, so it's easy to imagine that someone else will just pay the bill later. Or maybe, just maybe, it'll magically disappear.
And this chart just illustrates the problem perfectly. Look at this. When it's finally time to pay up, most of what you're paying goes toward that huge growing bar of penalties and interest. The original debt, that tiny little bar on the left, you're barely making a dent in it. You get stuck, trapped. And in this spiritual model, that moment you have to pay up, it's absolutely inescapable.
And here it is. This is the big twist in this whole thing. Right now, here in the physical world, there's a delay. There's a buffer between what you think and what becomes real. But according to the source, the moment we die, that buffer is just gone. Poof. This right here is the main event. Think of your consciousness, your soul, as the software running a 3D printer. Everything you've queued up, every fantasy you've played on a loop, every violent image you've entertained, every dark daydream, that's the code. And in the afterlife, that printer just starts running, automatically, instantly, creating your reality from the exact blueprints you fed it. There's no cancel button, no are you sure prompt. It just prints.
So, based on the blueprints you've been designing your entire life, the source material lays out two very different outcomes, two paths. And what's wild is that it's not some judge deciding which path you take, it's determined by the content of your own consciousness.
All right, let's look at path one. If a soul has spent its life racking up all this karmic debt, that 3D printer gets to work on that pit of negative energy. You know, all that stuff you charged up with negative thoughts and emotions. Well, those corrupt, ugly monsters you just played with in your head, they're not toys anymore. They're real, and they're your new reality. You don't go to hell. You'll literally render it into existence all around you.
But there is another path. A soul that has actually mastered itself can, for lack of a better term, change the channel. Instead of printing from its own negativity, it tunes into a higher frequency, the divine plan. Then, it can join up with other souls who've done the same, and together, they co-create a heavenly world, a reality that's described as being even more real, more solid than the one we're in right now.
So this makes it really clear. The whole point isn't just about avoiding punishment. It's about actively preparing to be a co-creator. It's all about training. So what does that training actually look like? How do you prepare the right kind of blueprints?
Well, the source lays out a pretty clear path, a blueprint for heaven, if you will. It all starts with mastering self-discipline. From there, you can start to understand and actually live by these cosmic laws. Then, you build up this reserve of positive, virtuous energy. And that energy is what fuels the development of these 9 spirit powers, which are basically the tools you need to build a better reality.
And this quote, wow. Hope without honesty is just another fantasy. It kind of hits you, right? The point here is that facing these tough ideas isn't meant to scare us. It's about being honest with ourselves. Because according to the source, any real hope for a better afterlife has to be built on understanding how things really work. Just pretending the debt isn't there, that's just creating one more fantasy that you'll eventually have to pay for.
And that brings it all right back here, to us, right now.
If every thought, every choice, every moment you spend lost in a daydream is another line of code for your personal 3D printer, what kind of world are you designing today? What blueprints are you queuing up for tomorrow?